Hey there, welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show. This is a show that is dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So, anyways, we're at the final day in the Great Prog War, the final battle of the first round is what I should be saying. This is battle number 16 on day 17, featuring Pendragon, The Window of Life, 1993, and Pallas The Sentinel, 1984. Okay, so when this battle was presented to me, I remember looking at this saying, this is going to be one of the toughest battles of the first round. I fully anticipated that I would like both of these and I would have a real difficult time choosing between the two. However, it has turned out not to be the case. This may be one of the bigger landslides, actually, of the first round. I'd like to say that I was disappointed. I really wasn't disappointed. It's just it wasn't what I was expecting, and maybe my expectations caused a bit of a downfall for, in this case, Pendragon. So Pendragon, The Window of Life, 93. So what is it about this album? Okay, so I've tried figuring out why it is that I just don't really care for it. And it's not even a question of whether I like it or not. I don't dislike it. I didn't try to turn it off or anything. I just couldn't find anything about it that was memorable. There's nothing about it that made me remember any of the songs except for the one that I wrote down that I liked quite a bit. So basically, the overall sound of this album is kind of it's very melodic. It's a very melodic, synthesizer-driven song, I think, with the guitar player is fantastic on this, I have to say that. I've heard, while listening to it, I hear bits of hints of Pink Floyd here, little hints of Yes there, more Genesis than either of them, but a little bit of all three of them, but its own sound. I think the vocalist, at some points his range is fairly high, and other points it's kind of medium. But there's points in the middle there where I feel like he sounds a little bit like Fish. I'm hearing little bits of that. I wouldn't say that it's dominating or anything on any of these things. I just think there's just hints of it all over the place. The other thing about the album is that for whatever reason that I'm not really sure what it is, maybe I could figure it out if I sat down and analyzed it, but it kind of reminds me of Duke. Genesis Duke album, an album I never really warmed up to. Ironically, the two tracks on Duke that I like the most are the two that are on the radio. The rest of the album, even though there's a lot of prog on there, I never really warmed up to it, and I feel the same way about this album. I feel there's a similarity between the prog on that and the prog on this. Just my own feelings about it. I'm not saying that's exactly what it is. That's just how I feel about it. Pretty hard to say anything more about something you only heard once, right? The other thing about this album is there's parts of it too that also remind me of And Then There Were Three. Now this is a different issue. With And Then There Were Three, it took me some time to develop a like for that album. It didn't come easily and it didn't come naturally. I probably had that album for 3 years before I really started to like it. And I like it now quite a bit. So, there's a chance that this will happen with this album as well. Anyways, the track I did like on this album was The Last Man on Earth. It was the longest track. I think it was the longest track. It was like 14 minutes or something. It's got an epic scope to it. It's got some nice, really kind of hooky parts to it as well. I thought the track moves up and down, so it's not melodic through the whole song. It goes up and down, and there's some kind of heavy parts to it as well. Just overall, it sat with me better than the rest of the tracks. I didn't get that feel of any kind of Duke or And Then There Were Three from it. Although And Then There Were Three wasn't a negative. The Duke part was a little bit of a negative. So overall, I just found the album not really what I expected. I think the first Pendragon album I listened to was their debut album, which I liked quite a bit. So maybe I had expectations of more of that, and it didn't really fill that, and I was maybe disappointed by it. I'm not sure. Anyways, I gave this track a 6, and it was probably my favorite on the album. The Pallas thing was very different here. The Sentinel, I liked it when I did it in the progressive rock albums of the 1980s series that I did last month. I liked it here too. This album was released in 1984. The song I liked probably the most here was probably Arrive Alive, which is the initial track. I think it's because it comes out heavy, and maybe I like it the most tonight because it came out heavy, and the other album I listened to first, so this was kind of refreshing. That could be the possibility. Some heavy bass drum opening here. The vocals were great, I think. The guitar was very heavy, and the riffs was really catchy on this tune, and so I like that tune a lot. The another tune I liked was Rise and Fall Part 1. Again, kind of the same thing here. Heavy guitar, heavy riffing. I love the kind of spacey part in the middle where it's kind of like they're drifting in a void before it comes back to the heavier part at the end. Guitar was very solid on this as well. And then I like the song Heart Attack. Kind of a slow, mellow, and then starts to build into a really kind of heavy song as it moves along. And then, of course, the rest of the album was pretty strong for me too. Lots of really good keyboards, lots of catchy riffs and bass, and the bass was really strong on this album, I think. I enjoyed this album the first time I listened to it. I've listened to it one other time over the last couple of weeks, although I tend not to listen to stuff on the internet unless I'm doing something like this, because I prefer my own CDs on my stereo system I have in my room. But overall, I think that Pallas just won here. I just think the album was just more to my liking. That's not saying that. I've had it the other way where I've liked the more mellow melodic album over the heavier album. Just depends on how I feel on a particular day. And today, for sure, definitely the Sentinel won this. Pretty much a landslide, I think. So that's my choice for today. So Pallas will move on to round 2. And Pendragon will go to the sidelines. So just so you know, tomorrow we'll begin round 2. We'll have 8 battles in round 2. Once Ben gets the gist, or the last group here, which is Pallas, he will shuffle the things up, put the combatants together, and send it to me, and then I will start round 2. And this is what we had prearranged, and I think it's going pretty good. I think it's pretty fun. I've discovered a few albums here that I like quite a bit. A few albums that I don't like as much, and a few albums that I think I should like, but I don't really like. And I don't really know why that is, but it's happened before in my life, so it's bound to happen again. I never liked Jethro Tull at the beginning. I never liked Pink Floyd at the beginning. I never liked Gentle Giant at the beginning. I didn't like Alice Cooper at the beginning. This list, there's a lot of bands that I didn't warm up to initially, and some of their most iconic albums. And classic example, I never liked The Wall. That was my Pink Floyd introduction. I didn't like it. Cost Pink Floyd 25 years with me because I never went back to them for 25 years because of that. I didn't like Jethro Tull because I didn't like that song Aqualung. I thought if all their songs sound like that, I don't want nothing to do with them. And it took me 20 years to get back to them too. That's just the way I was as a young person, and some of these bands I didn't want nothing to do with. I thought it's just stupid sounds. I don't like it. Right? I wanted my stuff like AC/DC and Kiss and that kind of stuff. I didn't want to hear all this atmospheric stuff and all that. But anyways, I'm digressing here, but just so that you know that I do not feel that just because a band or an album doesn't sit with me today doesn't mean that it won't take off at some point in the future. Queen is a prime example of that. I love a lot of Queen stuff, and really like the album that they had in this battle. mostly because I didn't feel it, and it may change at some point, but I just don't feel it. Just because something's a concept album doesn't make it a great album. That's just my own feeling, and I know a lot of people like that album quite a bit. And I'm sorry if I offended you. It wasn't meant to be, but that's the way I feel today. So anyways, finally and lastly, Pallas moves on. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you do. That'd be great. And we'll be back with the beginning of round 2, battle number 17 tomorrow. So have yourself a good night. Goodbye.